What is time anyway? Okay, heads up, people. This could become a little bit heavy. Any of you familiar with time travel stories will know how complicated the plot lines can become. And fans of Doctor Who will remember when he talked about things being timey wimey. Well, I guess this could get a little bit timey wimey here as well. Back in the 18th century, the German philosopher Immanuel Kant, I think I've mentioned him before, declared that time, along with a number of other things such as space and causality, was an a priori inner sense rather than an actual attribute of the external world. Well, what did that mean? Well, as far as I can work out, and Kant doesn't make it easy, time and space and causality are categories that exist within the mind, or they are categories that make the mind possible before any actual experience of the external world or any reasoning processes that we might attempt. So it's an a priori structure, a precondition of the mind that enables experience and reasoning to occur. So it's not something that exists objectively out there. It's not something that we can even think about, really. It can't become an object of thought because it is something prior to all process of thought. So that's time from the point of view of a philosopher, or one philosopher anyway. And there's always been discussion about whether time was, in fact, some kind of objective reality, an actual characteristic of the real world, or whether it's a category of some kind that the human mind, and presumably any other mind, imposes upon the external world to give it structure. If it's that, it's very difficult to think about it. We can't actually take ourselves out of time and look at time. We can't make time an object. Okay, so that's philosophy. But from the point of view of physics, time is no less peculiar. It seems at the quantum level that the concepts of time and causality become somewhat irrelevant, or they don't seem to apply. And then there's Einstein's theory of special relativity, the idea that time passes at different rates for different people, traveling at different velocities. Okay, well, that's hard to get our head around as well, but it actually seems to be supported by empirical data. But then, what on earth does the phrase time passes actually mean? Is time moving? We can only tell that a thing is moving when we look at it over a period of time and see that it changes position. So, to detect whether or not time is moving, we would need to watch it for a period of time. Okay? I feel another of those headaches coming on. All right, so if it makes no sense to consider time to be moving, to be passing, is time therefore something static? Is time less like a river and more like an ocean that we move through? I don't know. I think that headache's turning into a migraine. Then there's a question of subjective time. We often say, for example, that time passes really slowly when or time passes really quickly when I. Here we're thrust into a more psychological concept of time, which apparently, again, is both relative and has more to do with us than it has to do with any external reality. So perhaps it's not unconnected with Kant's view of time. Objectively, I guess we know that the hands of the clock have not slowed down or speeded up. Note that even if they had, this wouldn't mean that time itself had done any such thing, just that the hands of the clock had slowed down. And yet we experience this acceleration or slowing down of time. Perhaps what we mean, though, is that what was actually a day felt more like an hour, or what was actually an hour felt more like a day. By this, I think we mean to express the idea that more, or perhaps less, has happened during that period of time than is normally the case. It's almost as if time were a kind of vessel, and that in fact we measure the passage of time by the speed with which that vessel fills up. Okay, so there we have some ramblings and reflections about the concept of time. I'm sure it cleared absolutely nothing up for you. It certainly didn't for me, but it's something that's always worth thinking about.